The GOAT is gone. The effects of Nick Saban's retirement will be felt throughout the entire country. Could one of the effects be a Big Ten coach, or maybe multiple Big Ten coaches being a candidate to take over that program down in Tuscaloosa?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
Can you feel that? That's the earthquake. This is a major news story that doesn't happen every day. And this major news story of Nick Saban's retirement is the earthquake. His decision to no longer coach and hang up the whistle is the major event. It's the two tectonic plates colliding into each other. But what do we know about an earthquake? That major event is just the start. And then everything kind of reverberates out from it. Effects are felt once it kind of spreads out, because that's the way this news of Nick Saban's retirement is going to be felt. You can look at things through a tunnel, but this has a wide-ranging effect on all of college football. And the Big Ten is certainly not exempt. Even though this might be an SEC story, this is an SEC coach deciding to retire. It's not just a SEC coach. It is the SEC coach. It is the college football coach. It is the SEC program. Now, I will say this. We're going to get into the effects of some possible Big Ten coaches being a candidate to succeed Nick Saban. That's a whole topic in and of itself. But Nick Saban has been college football for a long period of time, ever since the mid-2000s, and ever since he really got this thing going in 2008, 2009, that late 2000s era, moving into the 2010s. He has kind of been the center of the college football universe. All of the planets kind of revolving around what's happening in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Now you don't have that gravitational pull to the center of the college football universe. Now, it almost seems like you have all of these other planets floating into space. And what gravitational force are they going to latch onto? Is it going to be Kirby Smart out in the SEC? Or is maybe the SEC going to lose its stranglehold on the world of college football? Is this the Big Ten's opportunity to maybe step up and be the dominant force throughout all of college football? That opportunity is certainly there for the Big Ten Conference right now, because Nick Saban has been the driving force, I believe, of SEC dominance over a period of time. Because ever since Urban Meyer's national championships, when it was Alabama's turn, I believe their first title was in 2009, everybody was trying to do everything, especially in the SEC, defeating Nick Saban. The Nick Saban effect, it's been called at some times. And now you don't have that effect. Now the college football universe has to latch onto something. This next year, 2 years with a lot of changes in college football, someone's going to step up. There is going to be a new sun. There is going to be a new gravitational pull for the world of college football. I think this opens things up a lot more. A lot more opportunities are going to open up throughout the world of college football, not only in the SEC, but throughout the entire country with all the changes that are going on as well. Look, there are two coaches from two new Big Ten members that really stand out to me and stand out according to reports that could be potential candidates to be the next head coach down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And boy, they were both hired at the same time. They both signed contract extensions. They're very similar in a lot of ways, and their careers have been attached at the hip. Of course, Oregon's Dan Lanning. I'm going to get to him a little bit later in this commentary about why I believe he could be the leader in the clubhouse to be the next head coach down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But he's been able to come in, and his big asset is his ability to recruit. He had the second-ranked recruiting class in the entire Big Ten, a top 5 class this last early signing day just a couple of months ago. Oh, how things have changed. And he really made his mark as a graduate assistant and moving up through the coaching ranks as a fantastic recruiter. Top 10 classes the last 2 years at Oregon in his first 2 years in Eugene. And then, of course, you got to take a look at Kalen DeBoer. Kalen is in the midst of a contract negotiation, which makes this interesting on multiple facets as well. But his coaching career and his record is just ridiculous when you look at his numbers at Fresno State, going back to Sioux Falls and all of the places that he's kind of landed on. His record is something you would do when you put it on freshman mode on NCAA football. But the Pac-12 championship and an appearance already in the college football playoff, it's kind of hard to believe, but this guy succeeded Jimmy Lake. A Jimmy Lake that took the program into the cellar from where it was under Chris Peterson. Okay, as of recently, Chris Peterson and Kalen DeBoer, very good coaches at Washington, but people might forget just the downward trajectory this program really took under Jimmy Lake and just how quickly, with the assistance of Michael Penix Jr., but just how quickly Kalen DeBoer was able to resurrect this team 2-3 years removed from Jimmy Lake and get them into a national championship game. I think that's really what you need to know about Kalen DeBoer and the great coach that is Kalen DeBoer as well. I want to start with DeBoer because I don't know if he's the top candidate. I don't think he is the top candidate. He could be someone that Alabama possibly brings in and possibly talks to as another option to kind of confirm their number one choice. He could possibly be in the room. And if you're Alabama, I think you might be in it to maybe take a look at this guy as well. Currently, Kalen DeBoer is making $4.2 million. That would be good enough for the 15th best salary in the Big Ten as we approach 2024. There have been contract negotiations with the athletic administration, the new athletic administration at the University of Washington. And this is an opportunity for DeBoer. If he wants to stay at Washington or if he's not super serious at Alabama, but he wants to be one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football, this is classic leverage. This is classic leverage to go in there, get an interview. Maybe you're not the number one option for that school, but you can say to your athletic administration, hey, Alabama is talking to me. I firmly believe that Kalen DeBoer will be at least a $10 million man. He could possibly be an $11 million man. I think he's going to be one of the best and he's going to be one of the highest paid coaches in the Big Ten when we enter 2024 next season, if he does remain at the University of Washington. But I believe the guy that you really need to have an eye out is a guy that, according to reports, has his feet on the ground in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and that is Mr. Dan Lanning. I think he really fits into what Alabama is as a program, and maybe the guy that Alabama really wants as the head coach of their football team right now. Remember, Dan Lanning has a $20 million buyout, so that's something that needs to be danced around. Could it be something that drives Alabama away? If Alabama wants somebody, they're going to get somebody. I'm just going to put it that way. Dan Lanning was a GA at Alabama in 2015. He was the defensive coordinator at Georgia from 2019 to 2021. Ask Michigan. That 2021 Georgia defense was one of the best in recent memory, maybe one of the best defenses of all time that we've seen in all of college football. And, of course, he used that success that he had with the defensive side at Georgia and translated it into the head coaching job at the University of Oregon. He is very familiar with the SEC. If you want to keep up that recruiting prowess, you have the recruiting talent in Dan Lanning. And, of course, Alabama is a destination program for a lot of kids. So if you want to keep up that level, you want to stay there. I know it's tough to kind of keep going what Nick Saban has built. I'll get into that here in just a minute. But I believe Dan Lanning can possibly have those two worlds possibly mesh together. Be careful, whoever takes this Alabama job, whether it's Dabo Swinney, whether it is indeed Dan Lanning, Kalen DeBoer, whoever it is, be careful. Because the old saying goes, you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. You want to be the guy that follows the guy that follows the guy. You're taking over for the GOAT. There's no question Nick Saban is the greatest head coach in college football history. There is going to be tremendous expectations. There is going to be tremendous pressure on you. If you win 10 games every single year at Oregon, They're probably going to like you. Eventually, they might get a little bit frustrated if you don't break through and win a couple of games in the playoff or something like that. But it's not going to be near the pressure and the expectations of following Nick Saban, a legend of the sport at Alabama. So whoever takes over, okay, whether it is Lanning or whether it is something else, just beware of that. Because as soon as you win 9 games, as soon as you win 10 games, the folks down there in SEC country, they're going to react to that a little bit different than they might react to it in Seattle, Washington, in Eugene, Oregon. Well, they're kind of reacting that way in Columbus, Ohio. But that's a totally different story for another time. If it is indeed Dan Lanning that leaves Oregon and makes his way down to Tuscaloosa to be the next head coach at Alabama, first, I want to just say this. If Alabama, I don't care where you're coaching, if Alabama offers you the head coaching job, you take it. And when I look at the situation with Dan Lanning, if Alabama offers him the head coaching job, he takes it. Oregon is a great program. There are a lot of resources in Eugene and a lot of resources to be successful. Dan Lanning has seen that in his short time, these 2 seasons at the University of Oregon. But when you look at the Ducks, would you say it's an elite job? And when I say an elite job, I'm looking at your Texases, I'm looking at your Alabamas, I'm looking at your Notre Dames, and you can put whatever criteria, you could throw a Michigan, you could throw an Ohio State into there as well. Different people have a different criteria for an elite job. I just think Oregon is just a touch below. It is a top 10 job probably in America. I'd maybe have to do a little bit deeper dive and really break programs down to see exactly where they fit in terms of the rankings of some of these jobs. But it is really, really good. It's just not Alabama. And I know there's going to be a lot of narrative that's going to come out if this indeed does happen. Stepping stone, right? And that's already something I'm already seeing on Twitter. Look what happened with Mario Cristobal, and if this indeed does go down this way with Dan Lanning, you could even maybe talk about Chip Kelly eventually using it to become a head coach in the National Football League. Is that just where they're at right now? I don't know, but I will say this. I believe Oregon could benefit from stability. And I believe Oregon as a program can really benefit from being in a Power 2 conference in the Big Ten, because with all of the resources and the financial contributions that go into being a head coach at Oregon, if they can really achieve, and the brand that they are, if they can really achieve their potential and maybe put together a couple of wins in the college football playoff, like this team this year, and I think this is what's going to make this decision very tough for Dan Lanning. The team that they have coming back this next season, that's a team that can contend for a Big Ten championship. That's why this is going to be a difficult decision for Dan Lanning. And who knows, maybe Dan Lanning is going to use this, going down to Tuscaloosa and possibly interviewing for this job, as leverage to get an even bigger deal at Oregon. So this thing's got a long way to go, even though Alabama's going to want to wrap this thing up quickly, mostly because they have to, and you got to keep it going to try to retain this really good roster. And number 2, because they're Alabama. Because everybody wants to get on the horn when they hear Nick Saban's retiring and say, I want to be the head coach at Alabama. It's that type of job where it turns the head of every single coach in America. But getting back to Oregon and finishing up on Oregon, if Dan Lanning does leave, this is going to be a very interesting opening, especially this kind of late in the process. Of course, with early signing day and everything. And considering their roster, it's going to be a very attractive job, I think, for a head coach out there to possibly make their way to the Big Ten and all of the resources at Oregon. That's certainly something to keep an eye on as we go throughout all of this. This is the earthquake. It's already being felt, and this thing hasn't even been going on for a day from when I am recording right now. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, whether you think Lanning or DeBoer or somebody else is going to make. Who do you think is going to make their way to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and how is this going to be felt? How is this going to reverberate within the Big Ten Conference?
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.